Ang Boston Celtics na ang #1 sa Eastern Conference at muli ay naungusan nila ang defending champions na Cleveland Cavaliers. Ngunit, importante pa nga ba para sa Cavs na makuha ang #1 seed o panahon na rin bang pumetiks katulad ng ibang teams? Makakausap natin ukol dyan ang basketball analyst na si Enzo Flojo. Enzo, good evening to you. Thanks for joining us on the phone.
Hey, Teach. What's up? Good evening.
All right. Well, before we let you go to your Holy Week break, mag-usap na muna tayo tungkol sa napipitong NBA playoffs which begin this Sunday already. Okay, tomorrow, meron pa tayong final game day sa NBA. And technically speaking, crucial pa ito dahil pwede pa mag-tie, tama, ang record ng Cavs at ang Celtics. The Celtics are hosting the Bucks and the Cavs are hosting the Raptors. But respectively, Toronto and the Bucks, from what we know, first of all, it's funny because they're actually going to play each other at 3 and 6, and it seems like they're going to rest, right? What do you think? What's going to happen with these two teams?
Yeah, I think actually Cleveland, Toronto, and Milwaukee will have a lot of incentive to rest their stars. I think it's really only Boston that's really probably still playing for something significant. I mean, Cleveland, yeah. I mean, if Cleveland and Boston are tied for the first seed, Cleveland gets the top seed by virtue of winning their tiebreaker.
Right.
But I'm not even sure if the Cavs still care about that #1 seed. I think that if I'm Cleveland, I think I'll prioritize just making sure that my main players are well rested heading into the playoffs. And I know that that doesn't sit well with a lot of fans and a lot of purists of the NBA, but I think that's the reality of the situation for Cleveland right now. If you're Boston naman, you're not playing for a better matchup kasi Boston, whether it's Toronto or Washington, they're going to match up with in the second round once they get there, and they should get there. Parang almost evenly matched sila against both Toronto and Washington. So I think what Boston really wants is home court edge throughout the first 3 rounds of the NBA playoffs. And that's a big thing, of course, if you're the Celtics and if you're looking ahead to maybe facing the Cavaliers in the conference final.
All right, Enzo, let's remind the fans how it's still possible, technically speaking, para sa Cavs na tumabla sa record and get #1 seed nga because they have that tiebreaker against the Celtics. But the problem is, they're going to need to win against the Raptors, which is possible because the Raptors might also rest their starters and their stars, or at least limited minutes. Para naman sa Bucks and the Celtics, ang kailangan ng Cavs dyan ay matalo ang Celtics. But one, the Celtics are at home. And two, from what I've read from the beat reporters in Milwaukee, Delhi, Giannis, Snell, and Middleton did not even travel to Boston. So what will be your fearless forecast for a Boston loss, if ever?
I don't think Boston's going to lose. I think by all indications that we're seeing right now, Cleveland has a good chance of winning, sure, but I think also Boston has an even better chance of getting a win tomorrow. So I'm expecting Boston to still hold on to that top seed in the Eastern Conference. I mean, defying all the odds makers from the preseason who projected that the Cavs would simply coast to the top seed in the East. But I mean, if you're Cleveland, you really can't blame anyone but yourself. I mean, you're entering the last day of the regular season with a 3-game losing streak. The defense of the Cavaliers has been inconsistent, to say the least. So I think the Cavaliers have a lot of other bigger problems that they have to take care of and tackle over and above finishing, as a #1 seed in the Eastern Conference.
All right. Now, let's look at how this matters and who this matters more to. The Celtics last year made the playoffs. They bowed out in the first round against the Atlanta Hawks 4-2. When you talk about playoff experience and you need playoff experience from players who've played and won games on the road. I mean, we keep hearing that from the champions. They always say if you want to win a championship, you have to be able to win on the road, playoff games on the road anyways. How do you see the maturity of these Celtics and how much will it be a boost for them to have home court advantage at least for the whole Eastern Conference playoffs?
Well, it's going to be very, very big for Boston. When they finish, I'm not saying if, but I'm saying when they finish with the top seed of the Eastern Conference, that'll create a lot of expectations for them and a lot of pressure as well. And to be honest, I think that's going to play a big part. And, to be able to diffuse that pressure a little bit, home court will be big for Brad Stevens, Isaiah Thomas, and the rest of the Boston Celtics. They're much better at home. They have a 29-11 record. It'll probably be 30-11 after tomorrow. So they're a very good home team, and that will come into play definitely in the first round against probably the Chicago Bulls, maybe the Miami Heat. Who knows who's going to get that? But it's going to be even more important when they go up against the much stronger teams in the second round, and if they survive that, in the third round. Inexperience is going to be one of the big weaknesses for Boston in the coming postseason. So they have to take every advantage they can get, and that includes getting home court for at least in the first couple of rounds in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
With all due respect to Boston and their regular season success so far, there are critics who still say that they're not yet really prime to go deep in the playoffs, specifically because when you talk about playoffs, you talk about a best-of-7 series, wherein teams can really break you down and grind you down. And when I've read this summer before that they say if you're still going to be led by a 5'9" point guard, no matter how good he is in the regular season, he can get double-teamed, banged up, beat up in the playoffs. How different will this be for the Celtics if they're going to face really tough teams in best-of-7 series as compared to the amount of wins they were able to rack up in the regular season?
Well, the playoffs is a whole different ball game, and I think that the Boston Celtics will face that head on, in the next few weeks. Whether they're actually prepared for that or not, we'll be able to see that, and that will reveal itself in the playoffs when they meet their opponent, especially when they get past the first round. And if Boston gets bounced in the first round, that will be an absolute disaster. But I'm expecting them to hurdle the first round, face the Washington Wizards in the second round, maybe the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. Dito talaga matitest yung mettle ni Isaiah Thomas. It'll test the acumen of Brad Stevens. But I think one gaping hole, if I can describe it that way, for Boston is they're going to need one other extra star to complement Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas, as good as he is, like you mentioned, TG, he's a 5'9" point guard. He's very, very good. But when faced against tough defenders for a 7-game series with the stakes so high in the playoffs, with every move you make magnified so much, it's gonna be a lot different. And years before, when the Chicago Bulls finished number 1 in the East with Derrick Rose leading them, it was a similar situation. And in the playoffs, Derrick Rose buckled against the Miami Heat and LeBron James and all the other oppositions. And I think we're gonna see something similar to that if Boston meets Cleveland in the conference finals. Again, I think LeBron James is going to double down on Isaiah Thomas. He's going to want to shadow him for that whole series. And I think Isaiah Thomas will have a very, very difficult time carrying the Celtics to a series win against the Cavaliers if they meet at that stage.
Will that next star or other star that they need potentially be Al Horford? I mean, that's one of the big names that they really brought in this season compared to last year. He's got playoff experience. He's gone deep in the playoffs with the Hawks as well. How key will he be in this playoff run?
Well, he's going to be very, very crucial for Boston. He has to turn it up at least a notch higher. I mean, if we're talking about the Horford of like 3-4 years ago, that all-star level Al Horford, then that would be good enough, I think, for Boston to provide a really stiff challenge to Cleveland. But the way he is right now, he's maybe the third, fourth best player on that team. It just won't cut it. You have Avery Bradley, who's maybe the second most reliable guy in that Boston Celtics team. And frankly speaking, I'm not sure that's going to be enough. They had a chance to get someone like Paul George or Jimmy Butler in the preseason. They had a chance to maybe trade up for another superstar before the trade deadline. But the Celtics didn't make a move like that. And I think this is where we're going to see the consequences of that kind of indecision or inaction. Boston was a very good regular season team, good storyline, being led by someone like Isaiah Thomas. They're an underdog story, but I don't think they're going to have a Cinderella ending in the playoffs this year.
All right, now shifting our attention now to the Cleveland Cavaliers. We've seen them in the last 2 seasons with LeBron James back. They can win on the road, especially when you talk about the Eastern Conference. So when you want to allay the fears of their fans of saying, you're not going for the number one, why are you resting? How good are they on the road in the playoffs, and how good is this version of the Cavs this season now that you've had pretty much 2 full seasons with the big three of Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving really gelling together?
Well, the thing that people have to realize with Cleveland is this is a very different team from last year, yes, but Cleveland Cavaliers playoff team, that's an even more different team from what we've seen so far in the regular season. The Cavs have been very inconsistent on the road in this regular season. Their defense has been horrible the past month or so, but I think they're good enough, they're deep enough, they're mentally tough enough to be able to correct those and make the necessary adjustments in the playoffs. Remember that in the playoffs, the Cavs will not play any back-to-back games. They're going to play a team for a 7-game series. They're going to have a chance to really dissect and, analyze and break a team down in that series. And based on what they've gone through the past 2 seasons, I don't think there's any team in the East who can overcome the Cavaliers in that kind of context, in that kind of scenario. And of course, we've seen it the past couple of seasons. LeBron James in the playoffs is he just flips a switch and turns it up a notch. And I think we're going to see something similar from Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving and some of the other guys they brought on as well. I think having veterans like Kyle Korver and Deron Williams will also make this team a lot deeper and more difficult to tackle in a 7-game series. And the entire Eastern Conference is going to find out how tough Cleveland is going to be in the next month or so.
I was about to ask that. How key do you think are those additions this season? Kyle Korver, Derek Williams, and Deron Williams, and even add their Channing Frye, who's had a full season and a half pretty much now with the Cavs after winning the title last year.
Well, they're definitely going to play crucial roles. They're not going to be stars by any measure, but we might see one Deron Williams game. We might see 1 or 2 games where Kyle Korver hits upwards of 5 3-pointers. Same can be said for someone like Channing Frye. J.R. Smith is there as well, who's very explosive. There's no question that the core 3 will still be LBJ, Kevin Love, and Kyrie. But all these other pieces surrounding them will be just as critical if they're going to defend their title. We saw that last year when they were able to overcome the 3-1 lead in the finals against Golden State, the importance of those role players. We're going to see that again this year. It's a pity that Andrew Bogut, that particular thing, did not pan out for Cleveland, because I thought he would have been a big difference maker for them in the playoffs especially. But, I think Tyrone Lue is a pretty good coach considering what he has, and I think he'll be able to make some adjustments moving forward.
All right. Well, we will see in just a few days as the playoffs unravel before our eyes. As of now, it looks like it's going to be the Cavs versus the Pacers, so that's going to be fun to see Paul George go up against LeBron James again. And it looks like it's going to be the Boston Celtics against the Chicago Bulls. We will find out the seedings tomorrow. Enzo, thank you so much. Maraming salamat. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Teach.
All right.
Hi guys, keep watching The Score for the latest sports updates, and don't forget to subscribe to the ABS-CBN Sports in Action YouTube channel.